Hello, and welcome to this latest edition of our ScreenDaily Talks. I'm Matt Mueller, the editor of Screen International, and today we'll be discussing the challenges as well as the opportunities around putting on a film festival during winter in the middle of a pandemic, not least at a time when we're seeing new surges in COVID-19 cases all around the world. We'll also be looking at some of the wider questions around cinemas, audience engagement, and production that this unusual year is posing to the industry. To explore all of these topics, I'm delighted to be joined by the four phenomenal women on the screen in front of you from the Tallinn Black Nights, Rotterdam, and Berlin film festivals. But before I introduce them individually, just a few housekeeping tips to share first. The format of today's talk is that I will speak to our panelists for about 30 minutes or so, and after that, I'll open it up to questions from you, our audience. I'm sure you'll have lots of questions for our guests, and please can we ask that you submit those in the Q&A box rather than in the chat room. My colleague Ben Dalton will be monitoring the Q&A channel throughout, and we'll look to get through as many of your questions as we can later on in the talk. But now let me introduce our esteemed panelists. We are delighted to be joined today by Tiina Lokk. Tiina has been the director of the Tallinn Black Nights Film Festival since founding the event in 1997, and I know that one of Tiina's proudest moments came when her festival was awarded a Category A certificate by IFFR, one of only 15 international competitive film festivals to have that designation. Hello and welcome, Tiina.
Hello.
Marge Liiske is the Director of Industry at Tallinn and Baltic event, the biggest co-production platform in Northern and Central Europe, which operates under the umbrella of the Tallinn Black Nights Film Festival. She was previously Managing Director of the Estonian Film Foundation. Welcome, Marge.
Welcome, good afternoon.
Mariette Rissenbeek is Executive Director of the Berlin International Film Festival, a position she took up in 2019 alongside new Artistic Director Carlo Chatrian. This year's Berlinale was the pair's first edition, which of course took place right before lockdowns started coming in all across Europe. Before joining the Berlinale, Rissenbeek was the Managing Director of German Films. Welcome, Marietta, nice to see you.
Thank you, nice to see you.
And last but not least, we have Vanja Kaludjercic, who is Director of International Film Festival Rotterdam. I'm sorry if I got your surname wrong, Vanja. I know we practiced that in advance, but I still probably mispronounced it. Vanja has previously held roles at MUBI, Holland Film Meeting, and festivals including Sarajevo and Les Arcs. She took over the IFFR reins from Bero Bayer on March 1st, which means that her plans for her inaugural edition have been marked the entire year by the pandemic, but she recently announced what those plans are going to be, and she will tell us more about those later on during the talk. Welcome, everybody. Nice to see you all. Thank you for taking the time out, particularly Tiina and Marge, who are right in the middle of their event as we speak. So, of course, we have to start there. Tiina, tell us, I mean, in all the years of running the Black Night Film Festival, have three previous editions looked as challenging as this one when it came to planning and organizing it? And how has the event gone so far?
No, first, I lost partly your question because someone moved the papers. Please, Mariette, I don't her.
Would you like me to re-ask it just to sort of,
yes,
okay. So I just wanted to, you know, obviously you're underway with Tallinn Black Nights Film Festival. And I just wondered going into this, obviously in a very strange year like this, is this the most challenging edition that you've ever put together in your long history with Tallinn Black Nights, and how is it going so far?
Now, let's say so that it is the most difficult festival for sure what we prepared. Because when we took in the spring the decisions that yes, we are going to take place anyway, doesn't matter what is going to be happen, then actually we didn't know with what we should have to face. And we have been thinking that, oh, it's okay, we are creating the online festival. Okay, this was a very, very interesting challenge because finally we created two festivals, and from a tiny, small online festival was growing up very interesting, big, and with a second development period industry platform, or not, it is not the traditional platform, but this is a separate talk. And it was really challenging, and it was really fun to make the brainstorm and etc. But also other type of preparation, it was awful because there wasn't anything what you knew more than 1 or 2 days in front. And even, let's say, we didn't know how many films are on the market in the June, for instance, because if our submission started very well, then there was a total break. And as you know, everywhere was production stopped, and and in very different stage of the films, post-production, shooting. So I presume that nobody didn't know exactly how many films are on the market and which one are getting ready. Nobody didn't know what kind of festivals are going to be happen, including we. And so we didn't know what kind of money we will have. We still don't have what kind of money we will have to make the festival, as audience input is quite big, as always has been in our budget. So it was very difficult, and we waited for our permission to make the festival and to invite the international guests. Also up to it was 1st of November, something like this, when we finally we have been sure that yes, we can make the festival also in live, physically, and we can invite the guests, but at the same time, to inviting guests, you don't, it is all mess, what kind of flights are cut down, what kind of not, who is getting COVID before coming to us, and etc. etc. There are million problems. And the biggest, just you can imagine my conditions, and where we had last week's opening night, before we had the COVID numbers not more or less under the control, and then it made a twice jump. And we have been totally lost because we didn't know what is going on. Okay, we are going to open now the festival, but what is going on? Are we keeping this open, or we should have to close this, or what is going on? And there was taken additional measures, security measures by the government also. And no, actually the situation is totally crazy so far. And we, if we would make this festival at least 2 weeks ago, it would be much better, as absolutely different festival. Now I can give you examples as a socialization of the guests is that we are going to the winter swimming in the morning and nature trips. So we can't have, it is not allowed to make any parties or any reception, which is normal if you are thinking so. But at the same time, no, but you should have to be creative what you are doing with your guests who are first time in Tallinn and with films are premiered. So, and yeah, it is not easy. And the industry is also so that it is fully in online. We should have to make this decision in August, in the middle of the best, beautiful time, where always everywhere the numbers have been low, especially in Estonia. And I was very happy that we did this, but in September we felt ourselves a little bit crazy and idiotical because everything was so good, and now it is. We are happy that we did and made such kind of decision. So you see, it is not. It is a festival which is eating, let's say, the most the nervous cells.
That sounds so challenging, Tiina. I mean, really, it's one of the reasons we wanted to do this webinar, because of course doing a festival during this time of year, was probably always going to be a challenge, wasn't it? Because it was just so unclear how cases would rise or surge across the across the continent. And obviously you're now experiencing the direct effect of that, which is we all feel for what you're going through. I mean, can you talk a little bit about how audiences are responding so far to the program, and what's going on that side of things?
And it is also so that actually we build up let's say with the same team we made 2 festivals, one in online and one physically. And of course, in our imaginations, online was mainly made for backup if something is going to be open in the cinemas. We didn't even have such a clue that people are so in panic to go to the cinemas. So we do have maybe 1/3 part of the audience what we usually do have. And it is also very sad because we are keeping open the theaters and cinemas, but at the same time audience are panicked because everywhere is told so that if you are going out, you are killing your grandmother. And so in front of the audience, one evening I said that, okay, I'm the grandmother, you are not killing me. So actually, and philosophically, it is also quite serious problem, because we are teaching the young and small generation to think about that if they are acting wrong, so they are making some kind of dangerous situation for the grandparents, you know. And so there is so contradictory things. From one hand, it is allowed it, but from the other hand, the media and government is saying that no, don't go, stay at home, go to this distance work. And yeah, it is nervous, and people are nervous and frustrated. At the same time, they are very thankful who are coming, and the feedback is good, and they really like, and they like the online version. But you know, first time I started to think about that maybe the cinema culture, I must say, to go to the cinemas and see the films from the big screen, it is maybe dangerous, I must say, because the pandemic situation have been changed so much the people's habits and traditions, and they used to stay at home, watch the films from online. And even now, when they do have the opportunity to go to the cinemas, they are preferring to watch in online. But what does it mean online? If there's in the cinema, they are coming together, friends, couples, and etc., then now they are buying one ticket to online, and they are watching at least with two persons. If it is bad luck for us, then by 3, by 4 people together. Yeah. So we are losing rapidly money, of course.
Right.
And I think so that actually, if the situation is going to be like this continue a long time, we can lose audience in cinema, and we should have to work hardly to get them back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's obviously one of the the challenges for film festivals right now is how do you kind of continue having a physical edition where you can have audiences coming in to continue that love of cinema, and that's being able to offer the sort of the cinema experience to your local audience. I mean, Vanja and Marietta, could both of you maybe feed in on that yourself? I mean, you're obviously both planning your own events, which are going to be taking place in winter as well. So what I mean, Vanja, you've already announced some of your plans for next year. Maybe you could just share what that means in terms of what, for your own local audience, how they'll be able to experience the films in the program.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, I sympathize with Tiina and the experience she's and her team are going through now, because I can only anticipate the same, atmosphere that will also happen to us, having to either lean that way and, from one day to another, you have to quickly shift to other 3 different options that you have to have ready and in place to make the festival happen. It's an enormous challenge. So, yeah, it's also great to hear that the festival is going very well, and the audience is embracing it in one way or another, whether it's online or offline. And for us, that was of course very, very similar challenge. I mean, we all want that moment, that anticipation and excitement, just before, with the audience, with the filmmakers in the cinema, just before the screen debuts, and and nobody wants to let go of that. But in our situation where the government instructs you that no more than 30 people can be in the cinema at the moment, this is our largest capacity. You quickly understand that the festival as we know it, that in last edition had 340,000 admissions, can simply not happen. So, in trying to understand how we can best cater to these groups, the filmmakers, to the audience, to the industry, we quickly understood that it's not possible to do everything at the same time. However, it was also very important for us to understand that, on international map, and for industry relevance, it's very important that we take place in this part of the year, especially with the titles that need to debut, that need that exposure and start their festival and subsequently distribution career. So this is how we understood that not everything will take place at the same time, essentially. So we expanded our festival over a couple of months, catering to each of these communities, trying to maximize the potential in what we can offer to each of these communities as a festival. So with the competitions and with the industry activities, we are going to go strong in February. In between February and June, we are going to have a couple of activities and festival programs that we are also curious to see how they're going to work outside the festival framework, because they have strong local audiences as well. And then because our next year, to add a bit on the challenge and everything that we have to deliver, it is our 50th anniversary, and it is a big jubilee for the festival, for which we have presented and actually prepared a number of magnificent programs, of course, that we want to share with the audience. So by celebrating in the old festival dates, because June originally was a month when the first edition of IFFR took place, there we want to experience possibly, with the larger audience, with the more international guests possibly coming to the Netherlands, and have this sort of festival celebration as we really want it to happen.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. I mean, Marietta, can you maybe share? I know there was some announcements in the last week about EFM particularly, and about how that was going to work in terms of only allowing people with market badges into the Gropiusbouw. But I mean, are you able to share yet anything around the festival itself in terms of what the plans are there and how you might, approach this year's program?
Well, for the time being, I think we are very confident that the next weeks will show which way we can expect the early 2021 to be. So we trust we could offer the films to the audience here in Berlin. We've very much, but the Berlinale is a festival for the Berlin audience very strongly, and we would do our utmost to make the event as good as we can make it under the pandemic conditions. At the same time, as you mentioned, the EFM, which is an event which is working with a lot of international guests, for sure has to adapt itself majorly to the new conditions and the travel regulations and restrictions. So that is a part of the festival or the part of our event which will certainly be in a very different shape. But of course, it's difficult to see right now. 3 months, unfortunately, is too long to really be able to give an outlook on the development of the pandemic. Right now, the figures in Germany are going down again. We have this lockdown light right now. It seems to have some effect, and which in the long run, the development will be too difficult to judge.
Yeah, I mean, are you coming up with contingencies? Are you keeping options open in terms of moving your dates at all, or are you very much fixed on it will happen in February in whatever shape?
We're thinking of alternatives for sure, because of course there's not only one way to do the festival under these conditions. That's impossible right now. But we haven't made up a final decision yet on which alternative would be the best for us. So we're discussing this as well, and of course also with our partners. And the Berlinale is a very big event, and we have a lot of different elements to keep in mind when taking this kind of decisions.
Yeah, and you mentioned the EFM being a hybrid event, and certainly you're expecting a much lower number of international industry guests to come and attend that. And I guess, Marge, we come to you on that now as well. I think, did you plan your industry program always to be online? I mean, was that something that you decided quite early on that you would do in light of the pandemic, or were you able to get international guests out there in person?
Well, as Tiina already said, we decided in August to go 100% online for the reasons that even if the pandemic numbers seemed quite well, we consulted with our health department and were seriously said not to consider November as an event for industry, because as we all know, industry is 800 people in the same room talking loudly, partying, and it's absolutely worst case for an event in closed rooms. And therefore, even in August, while our hearts were bleeding, we decided that we will include everybody and not exclude those ones who cannot travel, who couldn't, and not doing a hybrid event because it seemed, first of all, twice as complicated and it seems to me that we now have to adapt to what is going on. Is small screens, okay, we have to adapt to it. People online, all right, it's still online fatigue, but we have to deal with it. We have to adapt. And I'm happy that last year when we had a physical event with 617 accredited participants, this year with online events, which we were hoping that would broaden the number of countries and the number of people who could attend, we already have 815 participants from 60 countries versus 54 last year for industry. And we decided to leave the accreditations open until the end because I see that people are joining every day. So somehow this decision that was really hard at that time because, well, you know, we like meeting us in a physical room, being together and doing business one-to-one, being in the same room. Turned out, and we hope that in 10 days when the event will be over, we will have many happy participants as well. But we have to carry on. We just can't cut and say we don't do nothing or we don't fight, or this is the way we are trying to connect people. And as now it seems to me industry has more time to develop the projects because production is a little bit difficult, then it gives us time to reflect on the content and on the project that people have been carrying. And also that was a surprise to us that we had bigger numbers of submissions for projects to be selected, much more than previous years, and that was really heartwarming, I'd say.
And you mentioned the increase in numbers as well. I mean, is that I guess it must be a positive, right? That you're able to, you know, bring your program to a wider audience than you were. People were actually, you know, planning to come physically. So it obviously, is that a positive to take from this, or is Zoom fatigue such an issue for people that, you know, I don't know. I mean, this is probably a question for all of you. I mean, the sort of the necessity to do online events, you know, during this time is obviously good for the industry, but how do you keep the industry engaged, you know, through all these events where there's all these different, you know, panels and things happening? That's a question. We can start with you, Margie. What's the approach?
I think it's positive that people are interested. It was our aim to have more broad territories and more people, so we're happy. But at the same time, I think online fatigue is definitely there, but our platform will remain open. We record events and people can watch most of the events even months after we happen. So they are welcome to do so. If they can't catch at the right moment, they can watch like half an hour later, it will appear and it will stay on our platform that is open for accredited guests for a long time. Well, I cannot say that a year because probably projects want to update themselves, but we are working on developing a project market that would be online, open for everybody, talents markets, place for occasions, for regional shootings. So this is what we are up next. As soon as we close the event, we will start develop more that side and plan to at least, if not staying online, because definitely we want to have next year's event physically. Definitely there will be a parallel current or parallel possibility for those who cannot travel, who are not able. So we will figure out in a year and see how it will be. But I'm sure it is with us to stay. The pandemic will stay, but it's not because of the pandemic. It's the online platforms that help people to get connected also in between the industry events.
In this case, we can be thankful for the COVID because we dreamed many years to create something like we are doing right now. And finally, it must be next year in the same time as a gate via our website to the industry and in connection to the industry with creative industry. So if you would like to shoot the film, make the project or go to the Estonia, you can get all the information via our homepage. And there will be some kind of special X roads to build up between different kind of databases and create the networks. So in this case, we are very thankful for the COVID. It is where we are definitely the winners.
Fantastic. Well, that's good. We always like to hear when you're winning in these situations as well. Can we talk a little bit about the programming side and I guess the number of submissions? I mean, Tiina, did you change the size of your program this year compared to previous years? You went for the same number of titles?
No, I have more or less the same number of titles because firstly, when we in June have been afraid about what is going on with the programming and the program altogether in generally, then finally we have been in the same numbers as always, around 2,000 movies. And actually, in this case, there wasn't any differences. In one moment, I wanted to make a program smaller as all the other festival made. But then I discovered that, oh shit, I cannot do this because I am connected to the certain kind of contracts that then I am losing some money and I maybe should have to pay back some money. And as I cannot pay back anything, believe me, I only can offer the Estonian bread back, not the money anymore. Then we created the same size, more or less, as the program. So we are showing 220 full-length films together with the Children and Youth Film Festival, and more or less the same number of short films, 250, 260, something like this. And as you already noticed, the length of the festival is also the same. But what is true, we cut the screenings. And it was even needed because we should have to make, no, let's say so that in the cinemas there is not starting any screening in the same time. So we are avoiding any kind of gathering people more than 10 in the same place. So it is quite tricky, everything, I must say. We created the whole rules for the cinemas, press, our team, cinema goers, I don't know, even drivers, anyway. And now this is the only thing what we cut actually, the number of the screenings. But even we are making the film festival as always in Tartu, and we are making the small festival in east-west side of Estonia, what we started last year with a new Russian movies to integrate the Russians to the cultural room.
Right. Thank you, Tiina. Vanja and Mariette, could I ask you, when you look ahead to your programs, are you anticipating reducing number of film programmed? I mean, how is it looking on the submission side? What's happening for both of you on that front?
So for the Berlinale, we just closed our submission deadline for the long features, and we have like a slightly increase of submitted films, about 5% more than last year. So very obviously there is a big need for a festival and for presenting films at a festival. Most probably we'll have less capacities in the cinemas for the time being. Before the lockdown light, which we experience right now, the cinemas were only allowed to take about 45-50% of the seating capacities in a screening room. So we would at least have to reduce in order to at least give the audience the chance to watch the films, to reduce the number of films a little bit in each of the sections, to make sure we can repeat the films more often. And at the same time, we need more time in between the screenings in order to make sure that the audience can exit the room and enter the room without crossing paths. So you have less screenings per day for some cinemas. There are different hygienic and distancing rules we have to put in place with the different cinemas. And we're going, of course, to draw a very exact concept for that. But it will mean in the end that we have less screenings altogether, even if we have the same amount of cinemas.
Okay, but you would like take the number of titles down across all sections, or would you?
I guess. I think it would be good if we can keep up the same amount in competition and in the encounter section, but some of the other sections had really a large number of films, and I think we could reduce in the other sections Perspective Deutsches Kino, the German section, I think they had 8 feature films. I guess we would keep that the same amount because it's a very good number. But in the end, of course, it all comes down to the selection, which is totally in progress right now, and to see which sections have which options.
Yeah.
But it would be less in the end in total, for sure.
Yeah. And Vanja, I know you're sort of increasing your Tiger competition to 16 titles. You've confirmed that's going to stay, that decision is going to remain in place. What about the rest of the program? Is that going to come down in numbers at all?
It's going to slightly come down in numbers. The June edition will not entirely take over what hasn't happened now in February. So our main focus is going to be the 50th celebration program. Alongside, we are going to, of course, introduce our Harbor program, which is a new section that we have also introduced this year, as well as Bright Future. So essentially the non-competitive programs and, of course, the short and mid-length films. They're going to slightly reduce in numbers, but not dramatically either. But yes, of course, as you mentioned, we have extended our competition programs to 16. That goes both for the Tigers and for the big screen competition, really just to reiterate the importance also for competition for Rotterdam, but also for the international community, because as Mariette said and Tiina, there is no decrease in submitted films. Quite the contrary, we recognize the need that for these films to now get the attention and get out there. So which was also the reason why we decided, of course, to highlight the competitions right now.
Yeah. I might be putting both you and Marietta on the spot, but are there of you considering Cannes 2020 label films or thinking about working with Sundance in any way next year?
For us, that's always the case when it comes to Sundance, Gothenburg. Of course, with Berlinale, we discuss a lot of films. Some films, start in Sundance. They quickly have, there is such a short transition between the two festivals that it happens, of course, that we have the films that are presented in Sundance, and then, of course, Gothenburg as well. There are a few films, of course, with Cannes label that we are still discussing, of course. But next 2-3 weeks are our final weeks for closing the selection, so we'll know soon. Yeah.
Yes, of course, we're also in touch with Sundance, and we keep communicating with the festival. As far as a Cannes label, I think as long as we expect and hope to take place in a physical form, I don't think we discuss something like a label.
Yeah. Before I go to audience questions, I just wanted to ask each of you just about the social distancing guidelines that you have in place. I mean, you might not know, Vanja and Marietta, what the situation will be by the time your festivals take place. But Tiina, for instance, I know earlier you were mentioning that, is it a challenge to sort of get your audiences to wear masks, or what's the situation in Estonia around how you're managing the kind of, what your audiences need to do to come? I mean, are there temperature checks? What's the situation in terms of what you're doing?
No, actually, as you know, in general in Estonia, it is quite a liberal. And in this case, we are somehow in privileged situation because we used before COVID to work, home offices, and we are keeping distance anyway without COVID and living in country houses and etc. So it wasn't obligated, and it hasn't been right now as obligation to wear the mask. But just we got from the health office the obligation that our audience must be in the cinemas in the mask. And it was very difficult to integrate and to explain them immediately that you should have to make the 180 turn. And before the day before the festival started, they went to the cinemas and theaters without mask, and now they have to wear the mask. But luckily, the theaters and the concert halls are more or less the same situation. And actually, they all are, in this case, solidarity with us, because it is keeping safe also the actors and the team who is working, and also the audience. And we so far don't know in the world even that some COVID started from the cinema screening or in theater. So it is definitely more safety places than all these big shopping malls. And it is also, very strange because nobody is not anymore right now speaking about the shopping malls, but they are all talking about the cinemas and the theaters. But it is not dangerous at all. And actually, for me, philosophically, it is very important even right now to run the festival. I do hope that I can run this successfully till the end, because it is something like a sign to the society that actually this is a way how we should have to live, because we don't have to hide ourselves in, I don't know, under the blanket and think about that, oh, COVID, I am not seeing the COVID. But just, let's say, to live with this COVID and to live using some kind of things, as I like to repeat always in front of the audience, almost 7 days, that wash hands, keep distance, wear mask. And they are now wearing the masks and they are not angry anymore. First days they have been angry. We got not the most beautiful words sometimes. We asked to put on the mask, but now everything is okay. And I think so that for me, it is the right way how to survive and how to live.
Absolutely. They're getting with the program, which is good to hear. Marietta and Vanja, can I ask you, I mean, we obviously saw Venice was able to achieve a very interesting thing with their setup, in the fact that they were able to do temperature checks before you entered the festival area. Mariette, is that something that you're looking at in terms of the way that you can't really achieve that as easily, could you, in terms of having...
We're not really thinking about temperature checks, but what I told before, we have the social distancing concept, like what Tiina said, like wearing masks, 1.5 meters distance, making sure that people wash their hands very often, this kind of thing. So I think that's our concept, but temperature checks might be too much for a large audience. It's too many people.
Yeah, and ditto for you, Vanja? Probably not.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we are always... Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah,
that's it. It's the same for you. No temperature checks. You'll just kind of make sure people follow guidelines, wear masks, distancing in cinemas, etc.
We have national and municipal guidelines and regional ones. So of course, we are always in close communication with them, understanding, which protocols we want to put in place according to their guidelines, and of course, what we wish as well for our audiences. So masks, of course, are going to be part of it. No temperature checks. But yes, a similar and social distance, 1.5 meter will always be in place. So this is something to also respect. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go to some audience questions now. We've actually had quite a few good ones. Tiina, I'm going to start with you. This is from Nokker Schweikart. I'm sure I said that name wrong. How do you cover the gap of ticket and badge sales in terms of, and are you able to get more public funding to make up any shortfall in costs? I know you sort of talked a little bit about the challenges that you're having this year with, maybe lower audience attendances. Is your local government coming forward with more money for you, or what's?
I ask something easy, and actually we do hope, because I must say that this time during this crisis. We do have a very good Minister of Culture who is really fighting for the cultural field altogether. And it is the first time when nobody didn't cut the cultural ministry's budget. And even we are getting a little bit more money and so-called crisis help. And I really do hope that actually, as ministry promised, that they are not getting us down, and they will keeping us above the water. But we will see, because yes, it is financially difficult for all the cultural field, not only for the cinemas or for the festivals. So we are all, I think so, in the same pot, boiling. Actually, it is a risky situation. We do have also some kind of plans how we can earn money when the festival is going to be finished, just to make our budget cover the budget holes. But we'll see. The sponsorship is getting in Estonia near to the zero, I must say. I don't know how it is in other countries, but in Estonia, to get even 1,000 euros to somewhere, it is a tricky case, I feel myself somehow as when I started to make the festival, when let's say I begged and asked from my friends, please, I need 500 euros, I need 1,000 euros. So right now it is the same situation, but at least 24 years ago, I got 500 euros, but now it is not so easy to get.
So easy.
Mm-hmm.
Marietta, what about for you? I mean, you do have sponsors for Berlin. I mean, are they sticking with you? Is there more money coming from your local government or regional governments in terms of?
Yeah. So first of all, we are in constant conversation with the local, not the local government, with the national government, the State Ministry for Culture and the Media, because they're our main financier, and for sure they will support us if we need more money, as we can sell less tickets. We're also talking to all of our sponsors who are so far still on the same page with us, and whom we discuss with how to improve certain things, because we cannot offer the same things as we could in the past. So we're in very friendly communication with our sponsors as well. Of course, it will be quite difficult to find completely new sponsors, because if you don't have a long-standing relationship, to explain what you can offer in pandemic times is not so easy.
I would like to say and add that actually also all basic sponsors are with us, but as you know that every year you should have to find on the new ones. And even we found someone before the COVID started and they all left, but the old one stays and they are with us, and we are very grateful, of course, for this.
Vanja, how's it on where you are in Rotterdam? Is it a similar situation with local government support and sponsors sticking with you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very similar. We have, of course, taken everyone on this sort of journey as well. We had to, of course, first introduce me to begin with. So we had quite a few occasions in which we first started with general festival plans, and as the year progressed, of course, we have remained always in close contact and anticipating on what might happen and how will that look for us, and how ultimately this will look for our stakeholders as well. And that goes equally for the government support, municipal or private partners, and so on. So it was great to receive their support as well, and sort of. I really was surprised how understanding they were of these changes, and how embracing as well of sort of the opportunities that we are creating by expanding the festival over several months, and what that might mean for them as well further down the line. So that was a very interesting experience for us.
Yeah. I have a question for anyone really. This is a question from Suzanne Ballantyne, and it's about the online dimension that festivals have now been adopting. Will any of you plan to continue an online component for audiences, for industry, with your next editions, even if cinemas reopen and the vaccines work and we're all back to kind of quote unquote normal? Do you still see online being something that you will continue to use in your festivals going forward?
Are you asking from me right now?
Or
we are thinking so that actually online is staying with us.
Yeah.
I cannot say right now how exactly. I mean, what and what kind of proportions it is going to be the next year, because nobody doesn't know what kind of next year there will be finally. But yes, I think so that online is to come and stay with us. And we are planning even to open some kind of, don't ask exact conception, but online cinema on our own platform during the year, just to show and make some kind of different kind of cinema from the ordinary and usual cinemas. But for industry, online is extremely important, because it is giving absolutely another kind of diversity and dimension, and it is very important. It is difficult to do, because especially if you do have a small team, but it's already proved right now that it is well working and very, very needed. But what about others? I don't know. It is my conception.
We have our online streaming service that we have introduced a couple of years ago already. So this is for us a way, of course, to keep our audience with us throughout the year and emphasize sort of certain programs that we deem important that are also, you know, not necessarily part of the festival, but yes, throughout the year very much. So we recognize the need to keep it going, but of course we all can't wait to return to the big screen and have, you know, this communal celebratory experience all together. So that will always remain our priority. But I do think that what will be very interesting in the aftermath of all this is to get the insight from the audience and from the industry and from the filmmakers with the online and offline experience and so-called these hybrid models, and then understand from all these sort of trials and activities that we have implemented, what do we want to keep? I think, you know, really after experiencing it, that feedback and that data actually that we will collect will very much create sort of also, you know, complementary models that we want to attach to our standard festivals, so to speak.
Yeah.
As for the Berlinale, we already stated that we won't do any online screenings of festival films for the public, so that's for sure. I do believe that for the European film market, the online elements will also be important in the future. So I don't think it will be a one-time online event. And we have these other parts like the Berlinale Talents, the co-production market, and the World Cinema Fund. I do believe they will also have some online elements, and I can imagine that they would also continue over the years.
Yeah, this is a question from Matilda Naros, who's a film student in Paris. She wants to know, how can we help cinema during lockdown? And does watching films online and on platforms really help this art and industry? Is this where we want to be?
No, it is shooting your own leg, actually. That's what I'm saying, so that online is staying with us, but after we are going to be finished this festival, we are making the analysis and we are taking our lessons, and we will see how it is going to be the next year.
Yeah.
I think if you compare your online screening to a screening in the cinema, I hope you do feel the difference in the experience. So at least that would be good for the audience to realize that the cinema screen is still different.
Yeah.
And the cinemas are also essential for us as festivals. We can't go on without cinemas. So you know, if we can collaborate even more throughout the year beyond our regular festival experience, it's potentially a way to help cinemas and, you know, diversify also the programs that are taking place there. I think that's very important. In the moments that cinemas are open, we have to find a way to collaborate more and contribute.
Absolutely.
Bringing audience back in, because what's Tiina, as you said at the very beginning, you know, of course, cinephiles will return to cinemas immediately, but there is audience that may have been affected by COVID. They may have health issues and be hesitant about returning to the screen. So essentially, we'll have to mobilize, you know, together with cinemas, help, you know, create these campaigns for audience to return to cinemas as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, we've had a question about collaboration, festival collaboration from Claire Stewart. She wants to know whether the current circumstances have encouraged more collaboration between festivals on finding hybrid solutions. I mean, is this something that you have all of you kind of been more involved in this year, like either, you know, going to festivals and seeing what they're doing, but also talking to your colleagues at other festivals about what's working well, what's not working so well?
Absolutely. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Do you want to go with that, Vanja?
Yeah, we really, of course, have exchanged a lot with film festivals that had to immediately shift, you know, to the online experience. And throughout the year, we have organized a number of R&D sort of meetups with the fellow industry colleagues, whether they come from the festivals, from sales, from producers. That really also helped us feedback into how best we can shape our own experiences as well. And I think one of the best collaborations that we have, it's among the festivals in the Netherlands, including IFFR Netherlands Film Festival and Cinekid. We have invested together into tools that help us create, so to speak, a festival experience online. But by you know, collective investment, but also the know-how that we can put into this together really help us develop tools in a much more sustainable and way and have more quality, essentially.
Margie, was that something that you did? Or were you speaking to other colleagues who were doing industry programs online in the last few months in terms of, you know, maybe lessons you could take or suggestions in terms of how to run your program?
Well, yes and no, because definitely our events are different and things we started to develop. Of course, we talked. It was the last big meeting, I think it was in May. We all discussed, but then as events take place in different countries under different rules and regulations with different programs and also technical means or software to use. So far, yes, we use sometimes the same elements. Sometimes we just have to adapt to our own needs, and it's still to be discovered during the event, because it's a river you step never twice in the same place, and that's something that is definitely that I can feel. Yeah. Once you have that experience, then yeah, you will be more sure. But it's really difficult to some elements you can learn, but something you don't know before you are in it and you're doing it. Yeah, yeah. There is a question from Foy from Nairobi. So many festivals offer opportunities for filmmakers to network, find funding, partners for projects or in development. Is this something that the festivals have been able to facilitate in and around the pandemic? I mean, are you doing anything outside of your festival, I suppose, to support filmmakers or during the year, or what kind of projects do you have going on that are useful in that way for filmmakers?
The Berlinale usually has the World Cinema Fund, which is on a regular basis co-funding projects from abroad. So there are regular submissions for this. This all takes place in a normal way. Yeah. And as mentioned before, the co-production market will also take place either digitally or partly digitally and partly physically in February. So these are the two elements which we have to support filmmakers, but also for the upcoming talents. The Berlinale talents offer a good platform, and they will also through the year have events and support other organizations with events for talents. So we do something.
In our case, of course, we have something quite similar, and that's our HBF, Hubert Balt Fund, that I must say, when it comes to submissions this year, has seen a significant increase. By lockdown, of course, provides opportunities to focus on development of the projects, on writing, bringing some projects that needed more fine-tuning before moving forward. So that has been quite a challenge for our selection team there. But what changed, of course, in light of the pandemic, I think it's our communication when it comes with the filmmakers as well, with the teams, with the producers, because of course, by not offering a standard festival experience, it means also that we have to discuss much more together and create this new trajectory that is new for all of us by not physically potentially being present in certain place for the festival premiere and for this exchange with the industry, which is an enormous added value for the film. We have to find a way how to substitute for it. It means that we are going to start working with the selected films already in December, discussing, in what way we can best create industry meetups. Press and publicity is so key, and we can start, doing this sort of personalized, tailor-made trajectories for each of these films, so they can, at the moment when the festival begins, they can have the best possible experience out of it as well. So I do think that has changed quite a lot. Yeah.
We are creating our online platform right now, which might help to be cannot be visible for the filmmakers, and also to make the deals and to develop the budget and find the financials. And as Marge already told, that there will be the talent market for all over the year, and etc. is mainly right now for the filmmakers, because what was needed for the festival we already done and did, and now the next step is going to be for the filmmakers. We don't have any foundation, sorry for this, but our government in this case is not so positive yet.
But for the industry, I'd say that every project we present, and this year we present 74 projects, they can have presentations and one-to-one meetings. And of course, we are there to guide them to the right contacts. We are there to matchmake and to suggest sales, co-production partners, distributors. So yes, I know that it cannot replace the physical meeting and the energy that is coming from the other part you are meeting them over the table. But I have seen increasingly during events I have been attending this year, that when it seemed at the beginning that it will vanish soon, it will go away, people were not so much involved. Even regardless of digital fatigue, people are involved when they have a meeting. And it's not 100% the same, but it's a start. And they can have a chat later, a meeting later, and the continuous collaboration, even if they start with a quite neutral screen time, then it's a start. And this is what we are continuing to do.
Absolutely. Tiina, do you need to? I think
yes,
you need to head off to
I'm watching.
don't you?
Yeah, I have to go to make the intro for the Latvian premiere in the official competition.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, should we say goodbye to you now and thank you very much for participating? And we'll just stick on for a few more minutes if it's okay with the other three, just to answer a couple more questions. Is that all right? Excellent. All right, Tiina, lovely to see you. Thank you so much for taking part, and good luck with your introduction and the rest of your festival.
Bye.
All right, bye, Tiina. There's a question from Augusto Sandino from the Schweizer Media Group, and he has a question around the importance, obviously, for the major film festivals and industry events, the importance they play in the whole art house ecosystem. You know, the importance of supporting this whole network of films, avant-garde, you know, art house films. What do we think going forward, or do we need to worry about that ecosystem? I mean, Marietta and Vanja, you're talking already about sort of slightly reducing the number of films you're going to screen. Do art house filmmakers, avant-garde filmmakers need to be worried about having avenues to show their films and, you know, events to sort of support, you know, build that? What's the sort of what's the opinion about this ecosystem going forward?
I don't think there should be any worry. If more than ever now we are listening, and now we are really reflecting on our models, on what works and what doesn't work. So I think it's really an opportunity to shape our industry offerings and support for the filmmakers by either showing films or developing their projects, or help developing their projects, is something that is very at the core of what we are reflecting upon as well, us as festivals, in understanding, you know, how, you know, going forward we can even more be here for support. So what now is an opportunity is to have even more open dialogue in understanding that. So it's quite the contrary, actually. It's a good opportunity.
Yeah, I would say the same as Vanja, and I do think that it is a very good moment to strengthen the relationship between the cinemas and the festivals, and to really use the festival platform in a more intense way. So I think it's a positive way of thinking.
So you feel very positive then. Do you think there's going to be a rebound next year in terms of submissions and projects being made? I mean, Marge, are you anticipating? I think Tiina was saying she was expecting submissions next year to be almost double what they are this year. That there's like going to be this glut of films coming through.
Well, we will see, but definitely people. It all depends what the shape will be next summer. How many productions can go, how many projects can go into production, or what's the structure of financing be. But yes, I don't know whether it will be doubled. Maybe just some films or some projects will not be finished as soon as they wished for. So I expected a little bit more, definitely, but doubled, we'll see.
We're just going to go one more question, then we'll wrap it up for today. But it's on the question of premieres, which I think is an issue for a number of filmmakers and producers and sales agents. If we continue to sort of show films online, how does that work in terms of the premiere status for a film? Because that's obviously been an issue this year in terms of what, you know, if you show a film online, does that qualify as a film's premiere if it's not sort of showing in a physical cinema? Vanja and Marietta, do you have thoughts on that? I mean, in Marietta, you've already said you're not going to have an online, you know, premiere for any films. You're going to show things physically, but I just wonder if you have any thoughts on that topic, you know, premiere status for films. Vanja, do you want to start?
course, we have seen much more flexibility this year, especially for films that didn't have an occasion to either have gone online only and in a local territory, so geo-blocked, perhaps if there is not enough press, but that goes also for some films that go in regular distribution and haven't really received the deserved exposure. We would consider them, of course, for one of our programs, even in competition programs. So that's always, of course, a possibility. So we are also, of course, aiming to have both physical and online experience, and I hope that will not, end up only into being an online one. But I did recognize much more flexibility this year in what films we want to also give an opportunity or another opportunity to get the deserved attention. But it will always boil down to the more recent titles, because there were nevertheless quite a few events and quite a few films, getting that exposure. Yeah.
So also the Berlinale, we would accept a film which has been in a geo-blocked country if it has been produced in that country. So we did open up our regulations for that. As we're not going to do anything online ourselves, we wouldn't have any consequences for festivals following us in that sense.
Yeah, excellent. Well, unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. I want to thank our guests for sharing their thoughts and insights on this interesting time for film festivals, particularly in the middle of winter with all the stuff going on, but also the good news of the vaccine on the horizon. So I think we all have some hopefully positive things to look forward to in 2021. Tiina, Marge, well, Tina's gone, but Marge, wish you all the very best for the rest of your festival and your industry program. Congratulations on you on achieving that in these difficult circumstances. So hope the rest of it goes very well for you. Marietta and Vanja, we wish you all the best as you continue working on your 21 editions, and we look forward to seeing what those end up being. Many of us will hope to be there in person as well. I'm sure we're all looking forward to getting off Zoom and getting to places in person as well and seeing each other face to face again. As with all ScreenDaily Talks, this conversation will be available to watch tomorrow on screendaily.com. You can catch up on all our previous talks there as well. Keep an eye out for announcements for future talks too. It just leaves me to say thank you very much to all our fantastic panelists today, and also to everyone who watched. It was a really great talk and I really enjoyed it. We'll see you next time, everyone. Take care.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.